In this video, I'm going to attempt to walk you through what I mean when I say, and I know I keep saying this, that it's so important to design on paper before you start building in your learning management system. So I'm going to try to walk you through that and show you some quick examples of what that could look like. So, we always want to do this planning ahead of time to create a document, create a list, write out what your modules look like on paper before you bring in the technology. This is largely because it is so much easier to make a change or delete something or revise something in a document than it is once you've started building something in Canvas and once you've really invested time in doing that. You also, when you do this in a document, you can sort of better see alignment with, for example, alignment with learning outcomes, alignment with materials, and then also consistency. So you can very easily skim through your document and make sure that your discussion forums are all due on Thursdays. And you can very easily check all of those dates when you're just doing this in Microsoft Word or Google Docs or in your notebook. That gets a lot harder once you start building the actual activity in the LMS. You're going to need to click around more. You will have to go into each assignment setting to check them. So just trust me on this, that it's a lot easier to see when you have it on paper. And then finally, when you have this on paper, it's also a lot easier to get feedback. So you can send this to colleagues, you can send this to anyone who you need to or want to share this with so that they can look at it and let you know whether they think you're doing something like choosing the right tool. One of the things that's hardest for me is when I open up someone's course to give them feedback and I see immediately that they have chosen the incorrect tool for what they want to do. So for example, if a faculty member wants to tell students what the assigned readings are, and these readings are just coming from the textbook. So basically what they need is the name of the textbook and the readings for that week and the page numbers, right? What the faculty member needs for that tool is usually just text on the page. Right? So there's a tool in Canvas that allows you to just write text directly on the module page, and that's all you need. You just need text because you're just signaling that to students, you're just listing it right there. But what I always see happen is that faculty go through and they spend a lot of time and energy in doing this. They create an assignment tool to list the readings. But an assignment tool is a place where students upload their work, right? So they submit a file. So it's just not the right tool. And not only is that more work on the faculty member's part, it's confusing for students. You really want to use the tools in your learning management system for what they're designed for. So I shared that very small story because I hope that that has been persuasive in explaining to you why you want to do this planning on paper. And you do want to write out what tool you're using, write out the instructions that you're going to share with students, because then when it comes to building in the LMS, you're really just copying and pasting all of those assignment prompts and all of that right into Canvas. I promise you it will go quickly. If you have it really fleshed out on paper first. Okay, some quick examples of what this looks like, and all of these are shared in our Canvas course. So this is a seminar adaptation template that sort of actually would look like going through an entire class. So if you look at the time, this is actually working your way through an hour and 45-minute class. And it's just you listing out what is the activity, what type of engagement is happening, what are the student learning outcomes associated with that, and then this template has, rate how important is it for this to be synchronous. So if you're thinking through how to manage something like doing Zoom or Google Hangouts and having some virtual synchronous time with students, but then also some time where they're working on their own, this can be a helpful tool for thinking through how to manage that time, because as you can imagine, students are probably not going to be able to just sit and listen on Zoom for an hour and 45 minutes. So this really helps kind of work through that sort of moment by moment in a class that you're teaching. So this is a little bit more geared toward the just at the very individual class level, a little bit more geared toward using video conferencing tools. But you could think about how this might relate to your context and what you're doing for your students. Next, I'm going to very briefly show you one of the tools we use at BCC. We call it our online and hybrid course design map. I'm going to very quickly scroll you through that and explain the rationale behind it. It may be a little more complex than what you're looking for, but you could always take that idea and adapt it to your context. Okay, so here it is. This is the Google Doc version of it, and I have also shared this with you as a Word document so that you could modify. So, up at the very top, some basic information, and then this is where we have faculty write in what the course level student learning outcomes are. From there, we have a checklist where we ask faculty to think through the fundamental course considerations. So for example, how is your course organized? Are you going to have asynchronous content? What about synchronous virtual content? So thinking through those fundamental course decisions, and we just kind of list them out there as a reminder. The next section is about learning activities and assessments. So in this table, we list the most common types of learning activities and assessments that faculty are using. And then this is where we're asking faculty to kind of think through, must this be synchronous, or could we do this asynchronously in the online environment? And if we needed to, what would you need to do to make that happen? So if you have a project, what do you need to do? So this ends up being sort of like a note-taking, brainstorming, thinking space for faculty to use to think through how they are going to adapt these learning activities and assessments into the online space. So this kind of gets to the heart of designing your course on paper, and I have a video that goes into more detail about this particular document. So I'll just say that these module maps are basically where we ask faculty to put in all of the information that's going to be included in that module, all of the materials, all of the learning activities and assessments, and then how those align with the student learning outcomes for that module. And what's great about this is that when this is really filled out, I'm not the instructor in the course, but I could look at this and I could build this in the learning management system for the faculty member, because everything I would need to know to be able to do that would be right here. So this again is this sort of planning space, and when I sit with someone and I look through what they filled out here, I can then make much better recommendations to them about whether they've chosen the right tools or if there are alternatives that we could consider. Finally, the course grading scheme, and that just has to do with helping faculty make sure that their gradebook is set up properly to reflect what's in their syllabus. And then lastly, we have an engagement and interaction plan, which we did our best to just list the most common ways that faculty can contact students, and just helping faculty think through all of their different choices when it comes to things like having student-to-student interaction in their courses. This very last section is just about student feedback. So again, just a very quick run through there, but you'll see that this is pretty thorough when it comes to designing on paper. And that again is because we would much rather have this happen before faculty spend a lot of time working in the learning management system and might get frustrated with the technology, or might not make the ideal choice for a tool to meet the teaching goal that they have. The last tool that I'm going to show you is, it's not quite as simple as the very first one, which is at just sort of the individual class level. It's also not quite as complex as what I just showed you for the whole course map. This is really a sort of weekly, or it could be a module template that we will use with faculty when we're helping them kind of module by module as they build this out. And so I'm going to show you my example on paper, and then also how I built that and what that ends up looking like in Canvas. Okay, so here is my module outline on paper. I have the week with the dates, I have what the outcomes are for that week for my course, which I'm pretending is a writing and composition course. These are all of the weekly materials, so there's links to the videos and blog posts that I want students to read, as well as the textbook reading. And then these are the activities and assignments that students need to do, which includes a synchronous Zoom session that we have, a discussion forum that they need to participate in, and then an assignment that they need to submit. So that's it. That's all. That's what I have on paper. Kind of worked through all these. I put my due dates in, tried to make it as thorough as possible. And here's what that ends up looking like in Canvas. So here it is built out in Canvas. So this is week 1 of my course. I have my title up here, right? We want to have consistent naming conventions. And then I have the dates for this week. You notice that I added an overview and learning goals document. So on paper, that was something that I probably could have done here, but that sort of evolved as I realized that I should have a module overview document. And so I decided to put those learning outcomes in that overview document in Canvas. I then used a header here to indicate that these are the week 1 reading and resources, and then I'm using indentations to show that these items sort of are grouped under this header here. So I linked all of those. Note that I like to use these signal words. So this is a reading, or this is a watch a video. Also, whenever I have a video, I put the length of the video in parentheses. So that's another sort of consistent naming convention there. And then I have my assignments and activities. I have my discussion forum, which, oh, you know what? That actually is not indented. I am going to move that, because again, I really want to have consistent formatting. So I want that to appear underneath that heading. And then I have a link to join the weekly Zoom meeting. And again, you can see that I'm trying to be as thorough as possible by showing what the due dates are, giving the details right here on the main module page, so that students can know that, students and parents, just by looking at it before they even click into it. So that's just a quick example of what it looks like when you go from designing on paper to building in Canvas. And this is the hard part, when you're having to figure out due dates and look through your calendar and write discussion forum prompts, which if this was something real, I would probably have also added here too, but this is just a mock-up. But this is the hard work, really. And so then you're just sort of plopping that right into your learning management system, doing a lot of copying and pasting when it comes to putting your instructions and forum prompts in. Thank you for watching. I hope I have convinced you, and I hope you will convince your colleagues to do all of this work, this planning work, all of the writing you need to do on paper first before you start working in Canvas. It's okay to go into Canvas and play around, but play around in Canvas in a really low stakes way. And then when you're doing the hard work of writing your instructions and really figuring out how you're going to adapt your teaching to this new environment, do all of that on paper first, and then put it into the system. And lastly, I hope that these examples gave you ideas that you could use for your own context in terms of making a template or a map or a module outline, something that you could use. And then as much as possible, share with colleagues, share across your school, so that you arrive at some consistent language and things like consistent headers that you're using, so that students who may have different teachers or may be going between subjects have some sort of consistency in the learning management system and in that experience.